Yo, what is good? So I've had a couple of people ask on the videos where I uploaded Warzone gameplay on my laptop. I've had a few people ask for the settings, so I thought we could quickly go into that. We'll start off here. So on the display, you always want to be running in full screen exclusive. Um, I personally use 120 hertz. I do actually have a 165 hertz monitor, but I'm not hitting them frame rates, and I don't like using VSync because you get like extra input latency, and it just doesn't feel nice. So I personally just cap my frames down here in the custom part. I cap my frames to 130, and generally it'll hold around that 120 mark and doesn't have massive dips, and it just feels much better than if you were to use VSync or VRR. I just never really enjoyed that. It just feels weird. Um, so yeah, I play in 1080p. You could play in 1440p, but you're gonna get obviously lower frames. Personally, I just play in 1080p. And then if we go over to our quality, we have it on custom. Render resolution wants to be on 100. You don't want to be using frame generation at all. It feels horrible in gunfights. I don't. There's people that use it just to get 60 extra FPS, but that 60 FPS still doesn't feel like that true frame rate, and it just feels really glitchy in gunfights at times. So I tried it and never wanted to ever use it again. I do use the sharpening, which is Fidelity FX CAS. I put that on 70. Your VRAM target you want to reduce as well. You want to bring that down to like 70. Although we're not even close to the target, you just want to have, you don't want to be using that all, because obviously your system uses VRAM for other things. So that's the kind of sweet spot. Um, Going lower wouldn't really affect it. You could come lower down here, but 70 is just the good spot. If you have it too high, you might experience hitching and stutters. So yeah, that's an important thing. Variable rate shading, do not have that on. That will make your image look weird. Um, you've got dynamic resolution, don't use that either. And then everything else, I'll go through it really slowly. You can just read it as we go. Very low, low, off, low, very low, off. These are on, but they don't really make a difference to your VRAM, so they can stay on if you want. Shader quality low. On demand texture streaming, you can no longer turn this off. You used to be able to, so I have mine on minimal. Um, you can have it on optimal. It's not really, someone did do testing, it doesn't really make a difference as long as you've got a decent, obviously, internet connection. Um, but one thing I would say is you can have a daily download limit, so once it hits 1 gigabyte, it will not do any more streaming, and I prefer to have it that way. Um, and then we have the local textures on low. The image still looks good, and obviously when I upload to YouTube, that the quality gets lost a bit, so it looks much better when you're actually playing than when you actually watch it on YouTube. So yeah, I have that on low. If you see, if I put that on normal, that then jumps our VRAM up. It's still way in the target, and it's not even anywhere close. But we don't want to be taxing our GPU any more than we need to, because we want high frames and we want to keep the heat low, because that's what laptops struggle with, is the heat dissipation. And I'll get into like overclocking later because I've tried them things as well. So then we've got screen space shadows off, 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 low, off, low, off, off, off. So that's everything in there. Now this one's a bit of personal preference, but obviously the higher you have your field of view, the lower, the more taxing it is for your GPU. So you're most likely will get slightly lower. It's not going to be massive. You're probably talking like five, maybe 5 frames difference. But generally, I prefer playing on 105. Just like I only play on a 24-inch monitor, so I don't want to be like squinting trying to see people in the distance. 105 I've heard is the sweet spot for aim assist on controller. If you're on a mouse and keyboard, you may as well max it out 120. So I just play on 105, more so because that's just how I like to have it for the vision, but that is also the sweet spot. I used to play on 115 for many years and then drop down, and I have noticed an improvement in just my gunfights. Not saying it's the aim assist, but just my visibility to see that I'm hitting my shots better at range. I'm talking about, obviously. You want your weapon field of view on wide. You also want to have it on effective, so you're not zooming when you aim down sight. Motion reduction all off. You can put this camera movement down so it's got the least shake when you're shooting, which will help you be more accurate. And I think that is everything really. Like say, motion blur all off. I think that is everything. Um, but I'll just quickly go to, where is it? It's gone. I'll just go into this because you want to have your thermal mode on performance because your fans are going to be, it will be loud, but I play with a headset and I can't hear the laptop when I'm playing with a headset, so you'll want to have it on that because your fans will boost to their highest speed and obviously help with heat reduction, which will help like stop your CPU or GPU thermal throttling, and that will drop frames, and that does help. Network boost, don't use that, it makes it feel weird. Hybrid mode, I wouldn't use that either. Obviously, if some models don't have an iGPU, so that might not be relevant to you anyway. Um, but yeah, I do, so I don't run hybrid mode. Overdrive just reduces system latency, so I do use that. Um, what else? I just noticed that I need to free up some space on my C drive. I'm actually recording to my D drive right now, so we're all good on that front. What was the other thing? Yeah, overclocking. So if you do run an overclock, obviously you can overclock your GPU on the Legion. I did used to. It doesn't really make any performance difference, and the only thing that you're going to do is create more heat because you're increasing the clock speed. And like I say, the things that laptops struggle with is heat dissipation, and the offset of you running a minute overclock is only just going to create heat, which is pretty much like just not, it's not worth it. And the other point I was going to get to is Call of Duty doesn't like overclocks. Like, it'll crash a lot more than it would if you didn't have it overclocked. It might be different on PCs, but I have heard other people say like they didn't like their overclocks on some expensive GPUs as well. They'll always get a crashing issue. So yeah, you don't really want to be doing that. Another thing I was going to say is, obviously, if you are recording gameplay, don't use Xbox Game Bar because the quality is not as good as OBS. But out of the three, you've got OBS. I'm recording OBS now because I'm not playing. But the NVIDIA app, you can record if you just press Alt and Z, and you've got the app installed, or near GeoForce app. You can just press record here, and if you go into your settings, you will go into here and then you can choose 60 FPS, and then your bit rate, I use 50, seems to about the sweet spot that it's not too taxing on the system and you still get decent quality. But the difference between OBS and using NVIDIA is using the same software in the GPU, the same encoding. It just seems that I get an extra sort of 10-15 frames, and when you're trying to hit the 120 screen refresh rate, that's kind of important, because if the closer you are to that, the better your input latency is going to feel. So if you are recording while you play, just use the NVIDIA app. OBS is good, but you will get lower frames and more like spikes here and there. So I did used to use OBS, and then I've just stopped doing it. The only benefit I've found with OBS is it's just very nice to set up your mic and obviously all the setting options on there, as opposed to when you can, when you try and use this, you can change the microphone on here to my headset. But the annoying thing is when you do that, every time you come off this, it will then go back to the other thing. So that's annoying. Um, but yeah, if you are recording while playing, definitely use NVIDIA to record, not OBS or Game Bar. Game Bar is the worst out of the three in the quality, and I'm not sure if you can actually record in 60 FPS. I can't remember if I found a setting to do that, but I think it's 30. But that could have been from memory. It's hard to remember if that was the software that I was editing with. I can't remember now. Um, but yeah, so that's pretty much all the settings. There is like stuff you can disable filter overlays on the video. I don't bother, but in Windows settings, obviously there's like the gaming panel, but I wouldn't suggest it's core isolation. Like people tell you can get an extra 10 frames if you disable core isolation, but by doing that you're compromising the security of your cores to viruses and other shit, so it's really not worth it. And I did try it briefly and it didn't change my FPS, so I wouldn't even bother doing that. And like I say, it's just not worth the risk. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. I don't want to ramble on too long. I just wanted to get this done because I've had a bit of free time today, and I said I'd get this uploaded for someone yesterday. So yeah, anyway, hope this is helpful. Peace out, and catch you in the next one.